We're here with Keith Ferrazzi, who's an author of 2 amazing books. First one is Who's Got Your Back? Next one, Never Eat Alone. Amazing books. I'd love for you to talk about what these books are all about, but also, before I get into that, I should also let you know that Keith was also the Chief Marketing Officer for Starwood. And I was so hardcore at Starwood, I took every single hotel that was on Starwood's list, put in an Excel spreadsheet, and traveled around the world to 110 countries, crossing down every single list with a 1 next to it in Excel, so you can total it up to go down to the 1,086 Starwood hotels. Now it's gone a little bit higher.
But you've been to all of the Starwoods? I've
been to all the Starwoods except for a few, because there's one of them I can't go to, which is the St. Regis in Singapore.
Right.
Because I actually got excluded from Singapore due to some kind of media crisis of one of my employees. And when I tried to enter the country, it was crazy. But I've been to, and then there's 2 of them that I haven't been to. One of them's in Nigeria.
I'm not sure that many of our customers have ever done that. I think that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I'm
let the
so
CEO
hardcore.
know that. Well, now
I
it's
did
Marriott.
actually.
It's Marriott.
I heard about the merger, and I'm excited about it because more hotels. I actually had dinner with the chairman to a YPO gathering. A YPO, and also met the president, who was a presenter at the EO gathering, because I was on the board of EO LA. And we have a lot of the same friends from the Summit Series and what have you. So it's so cool to have you here. I know I've briefly said hello to you, I think, in Squaw Valley when you were at the Summit Series, and at one of the other events, I think it was one of the Summit at Seas events. But it's really cool to finally just hang out with you in LA. And,
my pleasure, brother.
You know, and I'd love for you to talk about, let's talk about the books. First, let's go to Who's Got Your Back? Awesome book. I love the titles of your books, because these are the 2 concepts I preach, these values.
One thing I can say that I contributed to my books, which is great. I mean, I really, I've always tried to find 2 things in my books. One, we write our books to transform organizations, but we write our books for people. So at the end of the day, Who's Got Your Back has been used in some of the largest organizations in the world, trying to create cohesive teams that won't let each other fail. But I write it from the perspective of every one of us needs 3 people around us that absolutely won't let us fail. I actually learned this from my mother when she had a group of ladies around her when I was growing up. These group of ladies used to cook for each other when their husbands were unemployed to make sure that there was food on the table. This group of ladies sat with each other through sickness. This group of ladies sat with my mother for months after my father passed away to make sure my mom got out of bed and could get back into society. So having a group like that around you that just won't let you fail, that tells you the truth, kicks you in the butt and holds you accountable, props you up, has a deep commitment to generosity, we all need that. So that's Who's Got Your Back. And ultimately, that's what we as leaders need to be building in our organizations.
In my organization, the executive team, especially with my business partner Tyler, it feels more like a family, like a brotherhood.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's not a dysfunctional family, which many are, right?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it has dealt through those pains.
Yeah.
But no matter what happens.
And that's what we build Who's Got Your Back for, that kind of team that won't let each other fail.
We'll talk about the principles about how you built that kind of team, and also what do you preach in this book in terms of the lessons learned, the principles to develop that?
I was sort of enumerating. There's really 4 core characteristics of a team that won't let each other fail. The first is that you got to give a damn. Because if you don't give a damn from the heart, then it's very difficult to forgive the natural human eccentricities, to forgive the foibles. And frankly, if you don't give a damn, it's difficult to tell the truth. With a buddy of yours, you can say, that was ridiculous, right? And what you mean is, I love you, I respect you, tell me more. And whereas if you don't have that social relationship, that care, then that was ridiculous is going to feel punitive. So intimacy is, engineering to intimacy is the first element of a great team. The second is, once you've engineered to intimacy, you've got to engineer to the collaboration of the team. A great leader doesn't allow all of the conversation to go hub and spoke to the leader. It can't be head of marketing to me, head of sales to me, head of IT to me. It's got to be a question on the table that we're all debating as equals and peers for that conversation, right? And then whoever owns that conversation has to be able to make the decision at the end. You can't hijack it from them. Use of teams for not reporting out but collaborative problem solving is powerful. But what that induces, it induces a higher degree of candor. Conflict avoidance is probably the greatest erosion of shareholder value. If your team isn't telling the truth in front of you, then you're a poor leader, full stop. If they're not telling you the full truth of how they feel, then you're a poor leader, full stop. You owe the organization full transparency and candor. And I can get into the details, but that's really what we teach in Who's Got Your Back.
And do you think that Starwood had that?
No, we didn't. We really didn't, not at the time. We were, when I was there, I had gone through 4 presidents while I was there.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, it was crazy. But that said, we had an extraordinarily visionary leader in Barry Sternlicht, who founded the company. This is a guy who broke all the molds. He created the W Hotel chain, which was, basically, you take some of the cool, hot Ian Schrager properties, but actually bring it to scale and bring it to the masses. Barry did a beautiful job of that. He created the principle of the heavenly bed, which is something that needed to be created, that re-engineered the simple element of the bed experience in a hotel, which, why would you ever imagine that not being true? Interestingly enough, Marriott came out when we came out with the bed and said, that's ridiculous, that's just a fad, and our beds are perfectly fine. Which is what brings me sadness, I have to say, that Starwood is going to be absorbed by Marriott, because Starwood's innovations really have redefined the hotel industry in the last 20 years. And I really do worry or fear that level of innovation will not persist under a different form of organizational culture.
Were you also involved with the campaign where you got the upgrades for the presidential suites and what have you? Because every time I did that,
so the Star Preferred Guest Program.
Yeah.
The definition, that was a team effort like you couldn't imagine. I mean, yes, it fell under marketing. As the CMO, I was responsible for the Star Preferred Guest Program, but guys like Hoyt Harper and so many other folks, they really cut the teeth on integrating. And here was good. I mean, everybody else had a preferred guest program out there before we came along. We were able to see what they didn't do well. Back then, you got points, and you could never use them because of blackout dates. So the choosing of no blackout dates was probably one of the greatest, courageous and greatest things, as well as the heavenly bed. I mean, it was crazy to think that we're going to have white sheeted, white duvet, fluffy beds. When in actuality, remember what they used to look like? They were disgusting paisley. Why? Because they were dirty, and we didn't clean them as frequently. And the idea that we were going to be able to maintain and sustain white, fluffy beds, courageous, but that courage, that innovation led to differentiation and really put Starwood on the map, and Barry Stern, like the genius that he was in that process.
My wife and I even called the W Hotels and trying to buy beds from them.
And
now you can actually.
Online.
Yeah,
Even back then, we could buy them. So I didn't do a very good job of making them available to you as a marketer. So.
Well, I loved so much also the concept that you have in your Never Eat Alone book, and also referring to Starwood. Whenever I got upgraded to say one of those presidential suites, I wouldn't want to hang out alone either. So I would literally just contact the local fraternities that I created in my client base and invite them over for parties. My father would do the same thing. And my father, as the president of DeVry, he had huge parties with all the sorts of university presidents, and they would be entertained like at the Westin in San Francisco or what have you. Yeah. And that's one of the hugest things that got me addicted to just out of curiosity playing roulette and seeing if you could just get upgraded to that presidential suite.
Funny. Well, look, I mean, Never Eat Alone, it was just one of the 26 chapters or whatever it is in the book. And the principle of that chapter alone doesn't really cascade across the book as a whole. That chapter was about get your butt out there, be present, get out there with people, because since people are so critical to your success, being a hermit and not engaging is not going to allow you to achieve the success that you need. But really the book's principle is simple. People are the conduit to the success and the dreams you want to have. Everything you want, hope, and dream for will it be achieved through people. So if that's true, whatever job you want, someone's going to hire you. Whatever raise you want, some manager's going to make that decision. If you want to be an entrepreneur, someone's going to fund you. People need to follow you. You need to hire people. It's all about people. So if it's all about people, then the question is, how do you authentically build those relationships? And that's what I was really focused on in the book, which is networking used to be about transaction, gathering business cards, numbers game. And I said, no, let's redefine networking as authentic, real relationships that are meaningful and care. And that's what people, I think, that's the revolution we started 10 years ago with Never Eat Alone. And I'm so blessed. We happen to be here doing this interview, but we're here at a conference called SANG, led by a guy named Larry Benet, who read that book and fundamentally realized that he needed to reinvent and be an extension of networking through generosity. And you take a look at what's been created here at SANG, how many years later, and it was because we scratched the surface of something people wanted to do. People wanted more authentic, deep, real relationships in their life while they were networking, as opposed to thinking networking was just some numbers game transactional thing. So we're really proud of that book. I can't say more about how blessed I feel and lucky I feel that the book was picked up by so many people. I mean, there's a bunch of young guys, you mentioned Summit Series. Those boys read that book while they were in college and said, I'm going to throw an annual party. Look at what Summit Series is today.
Summit Series is the most powerful organization on the planet to me.
And it's extraordinary, and the boys are extraordinary, and they lead with generosity, they lead with purposeful intimacy, and they've created a community of people who care and are making a difference in the world. And I could probably pass out of the world now and have been okay. I really mean it. I could pass out of the world now and be okay. I got a few more years to go to try to make a bigger difference.
Yeah, outstanding. I mean, you're consulting some of the hugest corporations and enterprises. I mean, your packages for consulting is 6 figures as a starting point, because your value that you're offering in terms of building relationships and teaching people, which you share in these 2 books here, is so powerful. It's inspiring.
Yeah, we made a choice early on. I could have gone one of 2 routes with our intellectual property. I could have sold to individuals like yourself a package of coaching services or online something or other, and I never went that way. I've always felt that if I was going to make a difference, the way I would make a difference is by making a difference in the lives of the people who make the biggest difference, right? So if I could help the CEO of General Motors, if I could help the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange, if I could help the CEO of Microsoft, the cascade effect of that gave me a bigger impact. And it's fantastic when I see some of the largest organizations in the world practicing principles where literally a year after our work, some of the participants will be on stage evangelizing what has happened to them, and they'll be starting by saying, let me explain to you, our relationship with our dealership community today is fundamentally redefined. I'm so blessed by the fact that I'll show up and my dealer and I actually have a partnership, and we never did before. And then the person will pause, and tears will come into his eyes, and he'll say, and what I realized in that process is that I wasn't being that man at home. And as a result of that, my relationship with my spouse, and I'm now talking to my father, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years, right? So people work, and if you can impact large organizations, you're impacting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in those large organizations and their lives through the workplace. And that's what we do. I mean, we get paid for accreting shareholder value, right? One of our organizations we've just been working with, credits the philosophies, not us, but the philosophies, to a 40% jump in stock price over the last year by truly implementing these in the marketplace. But what I get excited about, that's what we get paid for. What I get excited about is that the CEO of that company has been able to have a very different relationship with his alcoholic brother as a result of the principles that he's learned and the concepts that he's brought to that relationship.
That's so amazing, because it kind of epitomizes how in our business we teach the personal relationships about bridging the congruency gap between the outer self that you project to people, who you view yourself might not be the same. Yeah. And you kind of teaching that in the business world and personal world and aligning it together. It's kind of cool how
business
you align that.
Business is very personal.
And that's exactly what Tucker Max told me when I was interviewing him. I was saying, what's the parallels between dating advice and business life? Because now he's kind of the guru in business, teaching and publishing with Book in the Box. And he used to be this crazy dating guy. I think you might know him also. But it's interesting because every single person I interview kind of preaches the same kind of congruence, that there's so many parallels between the dating and the business world. And it's cool.
That's interesting, because what you're really talking about is you're talking about the art of influence, right? And the question is, how authentic is that, and where is it aimed? Certainly there's plenty of dating philosophies or strategies that feel to some people manipulative, but so are there sales strategies that feel manipulative. The key is to tap into authenticity and lead with generosity, and I feel like you can live a successful life and a life of values, which is, I don't know if it's rare, but I think it's rare that people feel that they can do that, and I ultimately think you really can.
Awesome.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Outstanding. Thanks, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Cheers.